So, like always, we begin all our sessions and meetings and conversations with the acknowledgement of the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourselves to our listeners and viewers and let us know about your remarkable work.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So my name is Aine Mcglynn. I am an Irish-born Canadian immigrant who's been living most of her life between Europe, Canada, the United States, and I've had the opportunity over the last 15 years to be deeply connected with the Canadian nonprofit sector. I have worked in every conceivable role in the nonprofit sector. I've been a fundraiser, I've been a program manager, I've been a managing director, I've sat on boards. And as is typical with most people's experience with the nonprofit sector, you end up wearing a lot of hats. Also typical of folks working in the nonprofit sector, I didn't plan to work in nonprofits. Oftentimes we kind of end up in this sector. I started off my my career in academia. I did a PhD in literature, which I never thought would have prepared me for a career working in technology. So even though it doesn't seem like there's super obvious connections between literature and technology planning, sometimes the relationship exists in the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, how we frame our relationship to literature or to technology sometimes is based on stories we have experienced over the course of our lives. So there is actually a relationship between storytelling and adopting technology well, which we can tease out a little bit throughout the interview. But currently, I run a small a small consulting company, a small consulting company that works with the smallest nonprofits in Canada. So the ones who are operating with kind of 10 or 12 staff or less. I help them with what I call strategic technology decision making. So how to choose the right technologies to make your work come to life. But I also work with them not just through that decision-making process, but through implementation. So sometimes I'm leading a build of a tool, sometimes I'm just project managing it. And then, of course, supporting them through adopting and sustaining that technology over time. And the biggest lesson that I've learned with working at the intersection of technology and nonprofits really for the last 15 years is that the big difference between an organization that uses technology and one that's enabled by technology has nothing to do with the technology, nothing, zero to do with the tools themselves. It has everything to do with the people, the culture, and the habits that have been cultivated and established around technology within that organization. And then sort of separate from my my consulting practice with nonprofit clients, I also do a little bit of rock climbing guiding. And it seems unrelated, but it's unbelievable how much I have learned from my climbing and guiding practice that translates back into working with organizations, particularly around bravery and leadership, making choices, and trusting your colleagues around you. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's the work that I do.
Wow, that's amazing. Something to be very proud of, all your journeys that you've done, and they're all part of life's experiences so that you can relay it back to your customer, to your clients, and to have that experience. And especially the rock climbing, my goodness, of course, that takes ample courage, ample dedication and strength. So kudos to you on that.
Thanks, Matt. It's something I'm always excited to talk more about. So anybody who wants to talk to you about rock climbing, that's fine too. You don't have to reach out and talk about technology.
Okay, I'll remember that one. So if you can articulate your mission and vision for us at this time.
Yeah, so my mission is to see my clients to be empowered by the technology that they choose to use, which is to say that it helps make their lives better. And by that, I don't mean just that they're more efficient at work, or their reporting is better, or their website looks better. I mean that the effort that they put into being technology-enabled organizations gives them the time to be able to focus on mission-related work, or on themselves and the parts of their lives that we know sometimes become deprioritized because of the pressures and stakes of working in this sector. So my question always, comes back to, when I think about my mission, is what could my clients be doing if they were not spending the time, searching for information across multiple spreadsheets and databases, wrangling board reports, spending, days at a time doing that, responding to funders' requests for information that can be difficult to come by when your systems are fragmented, right? So my mission is very much grounded, not just in what technology can do to help the organization function better, but like how it can address individuals' relationship to their work, and creating more free space to be able to do some of the higher touch and mission specific work that ultimately inspired them to get into their field in the first place. Nobody got into the work that they're doing to update a spreadsheet. Nobody. Not one person. Well, maybe there are a few people. Sorry for all of those spreadsheet lovers out there. Like, I'm sorry, maybe that's your passion, but like, I feel that most people didn't come into the work for that reason. So that's definitely part of my mission. My vision is for a digitally enabled nonprofit sector that can in some ways show a path forward to other sectors that are struggling with digital transformation. The struggle that the social sector experiences with respect to technology and digital transformation is not unique to this sector. It is getting people to use technologies well and be enabled by it. Is something that has been tried and abandoned by super well-resourced Fortune 500 companies, right? This is not just a social sector problem, but I think that we actually have an opportunity to be experimental and to lead to a better version of digital transformation by centering the people question, because ultimately that's where digital transformation or technology adoption efforts fail, is when we don't pay attention to the people who are going to be using it, how much time and space they need to adopt and learn new technologies and processes. And I think we actually have an opportunity to do something really interesting as a sector.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that. People first, they're going to be using it. So it's good to listen to them and see exactly what is needed to implement it in full. Yes, very good.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Like I often kind of say, to my clients that acquiring a new or investing in a new piece of technology or a new tool, it's like purchasing a piano, right? That piano coming into your house, it's not going to make music by itself, right? And anybody who's ever, either tried to learn piano or as a kid who's trying to learn to piano, like the reinforcement of the habit of practice is the most difficult part of learning piano. Like once you've gotten yourself sat down and you've learned how to read a few notes and plink, 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 and you start to bang out Mary Had a Little Lamb and you're feeling really good about yourself, like, and then that feeling good about yourself is maybe what inspires you to come back to the bench the next day and practice a little bit more. But it's the exact same thing with respect to technology. It won't work by itself.
That's it.
Needs people to sit with it. Yeah.
Exactly. So speaking of inspire, what inspires you about your work?
Oh, I love watching my clients' face change from frustration to curiosity. So when a client can move beyond an experience of technology that's rooted in fear, in an idea of themselves as I'm not a techie, hear that all the time, or I'm not good at technology, or I'm useless at this stuff. I love watching them go from that to, oh my gosh, I tried this really cool new thing with our database and I was able to automate, this contact update thing. And like, isn't that so cool? And I love seeing that journey from resistance and suspicion to curiosity and experimentation. So that really inspires me. Obviously, knowing that that when my clients are using tech better, they're spending time on other things. And that might be mission related stuff. It might be with their families. That might be focusing on their own mental health, like whatever it is. I love hearing them say, "Oh my gosh, like that was so quick, and it's been so much easier to do X, Y, or Z." Yes, just seeing those moments of possibility thinking when folks move from I don't know what's possible with technology to, oh my gosh, I can see all of these creative ways that I could use technology. And again, to kind of go back to the piano metaphor, it's like watching someone begin to learn sheet music and then over time see them throw away the music and start to like improvise and just like build melodies on their own. Like that's a beautiful transition to see.
Exactly. I love that analogy as well. It's like a vibration that you get within yourself. Once something sparks within your brain, like, wow, it's like that barrier fear
Yeah.
that you start off with. And then
Yeah.
once you release that fear, it's like your creativity just pours in, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's similar with climbing and guiding clients, right? Like they start off at the beginning of the day going, never having, touched rock, and they go, I can't do this. I'm not a person who does this. And then, you're lowering them off of their first climb and they are vibrating. It's like you said, right? It is, they can't believe what they've been able to do. And now, yeah, it's like they've shifted their whole sense of their relationship to self and possibility. And you really do see the same thing when you unlock confidence around technology.
That's right. That's right. Beautiful. And so what about challenges or any barriers in your work, and how are you working to overcome those
Yeah,
issues?
no, none. No, there's so many challenges with work that involves transformation. The biggest one is that it's always slower than we expect it to be, right? I think again, the sort of misunderstanding about work with technology is that it's a one-off investment and you're good, you're done, right? Like we paid for the thing, we've got the new database, like that's it, right? But again, like that's kind of like buying the gym membership and not realizing that you have to go and put in the time there, right? So so the same sort of thing applies, is that the progress is going to be slow, but once the commitment is made and you keep showing up, then you'll see these kind of incremental improvements, right? But it does require mindfulness and intentional effort. So not every client is prepared for that pace. Also, not every client is prepared for how disruptive, adopting new technologies are going to be to their team, right? So it's always a challenge to kind of table set with organizations who are looking to make this kind of change, to say like, okay, like I love the enthusiasm, like I love that you've decided to have this conversation with me, and like you've got some money to invest in this, like are we ready? Like, do we know what we're signing up for? So that's definitely a challenge when we're working with clients. We never want to leave them feeling like the investment they've made in technology has been a poor one. We want them to feel like the investment that they made, in subscription costs and implementation is being met with an investment of organizational dedication and transformation, the kind of softer parts of the engagement. So that's definitely one of the challenges. One of the challenges also is that organizations find it hard to prioritize this kind of work. They are so time constrained. This work often requires them to slow down a little bit, to pause and be reflective. Good information management systems are built on good clarity of mission, right? Which has nothing to do with technology. Again, it's like, what are we trying to do? How are we measuring that we're having the impact that we say we're going to have? And then what are the activities that contribute to that impact? And then how do we collect information about those activities, right? So everything starts from business and mission clarity. So when organizations have to slow down to do that work first, that then contributes to good technology configuration, like that's really hard when you're like, I am trying to also deliver, 12 different programs across, 52 sites with, 17 funder relationship. I've got staff turnover issues. Like it's just like the prioritization is really, really difficult. And obviously that becomes a catch-22 because that slowing down to reconfigure could help speed up the work, right? It's that whole notion that like slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? But it's very hard when these external pressures and factors are making it very, very difficult to prioritize that work. Also, yeah, just the funding landscape. This is, I doubt that there's a person that you've interviewed in your series where you talk about barriers or challenges facing social impact that doesn't touch on funding. I actually had a pretty illuminating conversation with a funder just yesterday and asked them, why don't funders fund this kind of digital transformation work? And they said, well, part of it is that we're not great at it. We have a need for digital transformation. We're not great with our systems. So how can we possibly put out a call and say, hey, do this work and we're going to support you when we're so far behind ourselves, right? So it's a little bit of like, yeah, like they don't feel that they can ask their grantees to operate at a level of, digital enablement or efficiency when they're feeling like big feelings and perhaps a little bit of shame, about their own lack of digital enablement. So I thought that was really illuminating. And of course, it doesn't feel like the kind of work doesn't feel like direct service delivery and support work. So funders, this program-based funding model gets in the way of getting resources to organizations to do this kind of work. Although, we have to acknowledge, and I think we all do, that the social sector, the nonprofit sector, social good, social impact space is a service delivery space, right? And how are services delivered in 2024? Via technology to some extent, right? So if we're not sort of acknowledging that reality, then we're definitely hamstringing a lot of organizations. Yeah.
Well, definitely, technology is definitely a work in progress. I mean, it's definitely something that has to be really absorbed. Like you said, the mission has to be there within the business structure first to really go through it in a balanced, uniform way to make it worthy for and worth the headache sometimes, to really bring it into the minds for people to understand. And then when we get it and we relay it to the people that we're also trying to understand the product that we're giving, like you're saying, the funding will come into place and say, do we get it? Are we processing it properly? But that's a conversation I think that continuously needs to be had between funder and fundee, coming together and really have that conversation, because it's never a one-sided issue. It's never just one level. Things are
No.
always multi-level, and there's growth in this every day. So I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. No, I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah.
Awesome. And what key priorities are you working on right now?
So yeah, I'm really lucky that I get to do work, with specific clients on specific, sort of systems design and technology selection projects. But then I also get to, work with organizations like Canada Helps, doing more sort of umbrella level work to support digital enablement. So we launched the Charity Growth Academy with Canada Helps, based on an assessment that a colleague and I developed several years ago. And the Charity Growth Academy provides a platform for organizations to complete an assessment of their tools and technologies and the people who are using it, and then spits out a customized, unique action plan within the platform that folks can go through and then start to, to cross things off of their list. So for me, there's the priority is always like a balance between doing work that is trying to work at more of a systems level to address this need, but then also sort of diving deep into specific projects with my clients. So maintaining that balance is definitely a priority. Embedded in both of those is I want to see effective, affordable, and sustainable technology in the hands of organizations who need it to sustain their incredible work. Another key priority in doing that work with clients and at a sector level is to acknowledge the inequity in the access to technology skills, training, and the tools themselves. A couple of years ago, I wrote a piece about it's called "There's No Curiosity in Shame," right? So the way that shame holds people back from being curious in technology. And if you've felt excluded or humiliated by technology training, culture, etc., like it's not very likely that you're going to be able to embrace an open and curious mindset when it comes to adopting new technology. So for me, a priority in my work is always starting from the place that the person I'm speaking to might not have a positive, have had a positive experience with numeracy or data literacy. So I think we start there. A priority is always to be tackling the human side. So learning and leaning into strategies that are supporting behavior change, habit development, supporting nonprofit leaders to set the kind of vision and operational strategy that staff is so desperately looking for when it comes to using digital. And then, yeah, always thinking about how to prioritize unlocking existing resources across the sector so that we can build upon each other's work. In any given year, you might come across sort of like 5 or 6 different like technology skills reports or digital skills reports. And sometimes it feels like, well, wait a second, where are we all asking very similar questions, of similar orgs, like can we come to some kind of sector-wide strategy for digital enablement that all of the sort of umbrella or capacity building organizations and funders can subscribe to? Like, I think that would be a really helpful way to find some efficiency and scale in how we support organizations. So yeah, just a few small priorities. Yeah.
I love how you touched on the human side because, we're talking about IT and tech and all that, but yes, people do have that sense of, now I'm 50. I always say I'm 45 for life, but, but,
That's fun.
yeah. But, in my age group, it's like we still have that little bit of fear, I'm always trying to upgrade myself, but I always have to remember that I'm still human, and those two should never, we can marry, but we can't intermarry. You know what I mean? We can't fuse ourselves together. We should have two sides and respect those sides, you know what I mean? But to be able to have the confidence and will to go out there and and learn about these type of technologies to break the barrier of ageism, classism, all the isms, it's about.
Absolutely, Matt.
Mm.
And like, I'm working with a client right now. They're in their 70s, leading a digital transformation project at a largely volunteer-run organization in a very small community in the Atlantic provinces. And this person is determined to stay relevant and acknowledges like, these are the things I don't know and I will never know, but it's not important for me to know. What is important for me to do is to put the right tools in the hands of the people who are going to be using it. And I can do that without having to know a single thing about, computing, right? So I think it's also about just, again, kind of back to bravery and fear, and stepping into a domain that you for some reason have been, have received a message that you don't belong in or you're not capable of existing in, and kind of like pushing the doors open on that space and saying, but what if I walked in here, right? Like, what could I learn? What can I bring actually into this space from my non-technical life and experience? So, I do think that the technology space can be open to everyone. And I think, my clients, certainly some of them are just shining examples of what it looks like to just kind of step into it, even though it feels like it's not fit for you. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And yes. How do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
Yeah. I think I would love to, sort of my data technology mind goes, I would love to see some kind of common approach to measuring impact. And I know obviously like the common approach is something that's been in development for a long time. But maybe it's not even as prescriptive of that as that. Maybe it's, adopting some of the sustainable development goals as our guiding principle across the Canadian sector, and starting to sort of, measure into those goals that we've selected as a mission critical for us. Because I would love to be able to look at our impact sector wide. I think that would be a consequence of a better digitally enabled sector. I think sometimes we're sort of like, well, if we build up the measurement framework, then we'll get there. We'll just impose it on everybody, but it can't be like that. Like, you have to build up from the ground the capacity to contribute to that measurement framework. So, kind of top down and bottom up at the same time. I think that would make me really excited about the future of social impact and cloud computing. I'd like to see, more of a systems approach to addressing the barriers to cloud computing in the social impact space. And that starts with, learning and training. Like, I always laugh about like, so not, we're not that dissimilar in age, and like, you probably took like a computer class when you were a kid, right? Yeah, I remember like computer class, right? And we would go and play like some kind of 8-bit, green graphics on a black screen type of a game, but you had to kind of like learn to boot it up with like a command prompt, like, and they were kind of teaching us how computers functioned a little bit with those computer classes. But now it's like every kid is handed, this super powerful computing device from when they're very small, and we start to kind of think that they're magic, right? Like that this is just some kind of oracle, and it works perfectly, and it knows what I need, and it anticipates where I'm going to travel to. And it's like, but in fact, like, I think we've lost sight a little bit of how computing works, how it's based on information architecture, how it's based on logic and categories, which is very reflective of how our brains work anyway. So I think like starting early on, we need to sort of create that type of learning for folks to think about like information logic and, like reason, like if this, then that. Like, so much in computing is based on a logic statement. If this, then that, Like if I receive this email, it gets this tag, right? And so like creating more opportunities for people to learn to think in ways that will facilitate, you know, really good information management practices, I think will be really, really important. You know, there's so many, you see some like master's programs in nonprofit management, and there's not a single module on technology, right? So I think that we need to sort of embed it as an expectation of part of your learning pathway or part of your professional development through the sector. Obviously, the funding question, if we're thinking about it, you know, as a whole system, like there needs to be movement towards specific line items that are just like separate from your 15 or 10, 12 or 15% admin that you're allowed, but like what's the percentage of the value of the grant that's going to sustaining, you know, your database, your email marketing system, your program registration tool, your dashboard evaluation measurement tool. So there has to be a line there in budgeting. So I think, you know, these kinds of system-wide attempts to look at how to bring people along would make me feel a lot more excited about the future of social impact and cloud computing.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go right to the next question because I can go on and on with you. I'm going to go right to the next question.
Okay, great. Yeah, sure. No problem.
What is your ultimate goal and what does success look like for you?
Yeah, I think, you know, my ultimate goal is that just in the same way that as social sector organizations, we apply rigor to our financial management policies and practices, that we apply the same kind of, you know, rigor and attention to how we're using technology. So I'd like to see that kind of approach adopted. I'd like to see organizations, you know, led by folks who are excited about the possibilities of technology and who acknowledge that technology-related projects means creating time and space for the staff to learn new processes and habits. And that's not like, oh, hey, we're going to be doing this thing, you know, in October, FYI. It's rather, we're going to be doing this thing in October, FYI, and here are the things that I'm taking off of your plate so that you can focus on this, because it's as important as anything else we're doing, right? So setting priorities not for folks, not just by giving them more work, but like, you know, you set the priority by saying, this is the things that you don't have to do, right? Like that's what makes it important. And of course, yeah, that ultimate goal is, you know, a digitally enabled nonprofit, that nonprofit sector, social sector that's funded well to do this work, and that is staffed by people who are met where they are and who are, you know, empowered to feel brave and curious about technology. That would be the ultimate goal. That would make me retire off into the sunset, climb some big wall and never come down.
Yeah, you'll climb off into the sunset, right?
Into the sunset, exactly.
Beautiful. I'm envisioning it now and it looks beautiful. Oh, this has been a really great interview. Last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action at this time?
Yeah, you know, I'd be remiss if I wasn't calling on folks to go over to the Charity Growth Academy and sign up to do the free assessment and get their action plan. I mean, it's just the most specific thing that any organization who's trying to get moving on digital transformation can do. It takes 15 minutes and you've got an action plan to start working on today, which is really great. Calls to action to funders is to start thinking about how you can support this work in a sustaining way for your nonprofits. Don't get caught up on what you can't do. That's not relevant. Some of your grantees might be in a place where they're really ready to move on this thing and they need your support here. So yeah, that's a very critical call to action. And yeah, I guess, closing thoughts are just to encourage people to not get hung up on what they don't know or the ways in which they feel unprepared for the work. And yeah, try to find that bravest part of themselves, that that part that's curious, that's interested, that knows what happens when they indulge their curiosity and how exciting that can feel, and start to tap into that when they're thinking about using tech at their orgs.
Beautifully said. So that will definitely permeate throughout the ethers, especially when people are taking in this video. My goodness, I really appreciate you so much. On behalf of Setsi, we appreciate you, and we wish you much success for now and in the future. And always be safe when you're rock climbing. Think of us when you're in, and maybe one day Setsi will join you. We'll do.
I would love that. I'm always excited to take folks out, and all people can climb. We were born knowing how to scramble up on things and climb onto chairs and tables and things like that. And
Absolutely.
that habit is still there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks again so much, Aine, for all your efforts, your leadership, and just taking the time today. So we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So once again, thank you so much, Aine. I wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Hopefully the fog will clear and we can see the sun come out.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, it was lovely speaking with you. You take care.
All right, you too, dear. Thanks.
Take care.